Yaps. It's in the name. So, President Trump just hosted a briefing at the White House. One by one, Trump and Pam Bondi delivered major announcements. They gave us patch notes. They said, hey, we got a new update for the game. We need to give you major updates and on clues on what's coming next. This is directly for the American people, not for the people around the world, just American. Here's everything that you should know, and no joke, it's gonna get a little crazy. A little crazy. Okay, point number one. So the Supreme Court had a double victory. We didn't just win once, we won twice. Just like the Indian cricket team having Virat Kohli on there, because you just win by having him on the team, and then guess what? You also just won the game, so it's like double win. Two massive 6-3 Supreme Court rulings announced simultaneously. Nationwide injunctions effectively dead, and parent right restored to schools. Wow, hold on, that's actually kind of huge. What the hell? Nationwide injunctions effectively dead. So nationwide, like just these NGOs that just get tons of money, effectively are dying. And when you would go to school, it felt like the parents were in handcuffs and were what their kids were getting educated on. And now we're actually giving the power back to the parents. Over here, it's a big deal.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done.
And this is like these low-level judges, too, who have the power to supersede what the people voted for. Now, I do think there needs to be checks and balances, but not at that level.
And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour.
It's been an amazing period.
It's
been great.
The country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. This morning, the Supreme.
I love the way away with words. Is he not? The second point is the immediate policy avalanche. Now, if you guys are in crypto, we have the AVAX coin. I wonder if there's been a pump just because of this word association. Policy is now moving forward without court interference. Birthright citizenship. 30-day countdown. Wow. Sanctuary city funding cuts. Refugee resettlement suspension. Federal transgender surgery funding stopped. Wow, you know he was excited to read this off.
Because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies.
That is kind of like a glitch in the game where you could have just, two immigrants come into this country, bang, pop out a kid. The kid has citizenship rights, and now there's a whole convoluted mess about, okay, well, we can't obviously just be monsters and separate the kid from the family, so we have to kind of work them into the system. And now our system's so bloated that the social welfare net that we have just is not appropriately been built to handle this amount of people. Like, the infrastructure is good, but not that good.
Policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant case because
it's a giant ruling. I've seen a lot of rulings in my life. I've been a part of them. Some not so great, but this one, pretty great. The shocking district breakdown. Out of 94 total federal districts in America, just five whole districts, liberal districts I might add, issued 35 out of 40 nationwide injunctions blocking Trump's agenda. This is what we're talking about. You have 5 liberal judges who just say, no, I don't wanna, because that's Trump. I don't care if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I just don't like the orange man with the spray tan. 5 districts were controlled the policy for 330 million Americans. insane.
As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies.
How dare
To put
they?
this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Wow. Think about that. 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues.
I personally love these breakdowns like this, especially on like Twitter. This is how I get a lot of like the news sources, just like boom, 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 what's happening. And I love how you guys have like Carl Meta who will take these big events and just break them down like this via clips. It's so nice. But going to what this isn't just a good thing for Trump and the Trump administration, but think of like all presidents going down the road. Like this ideally is something that sticks going forward. So future elected presidents won't have to fight their own system, their own government in order to get shit done. Like that's just a dub, not just for this administration, but administrations going forward as well. Now, on a historical scale, Trump on an unprecedented judicial resistance says, with more nationwide injunctions more than 20th century, more nationwide injunctions more than the entire 20th century combined, saying that this is like, there's been more attempts to stop him than combination of all prior presidents. Nearly 700 federal judges could previously block presidential policies and policies tied up in courts for years. I mean, this is just so convoluted, so we're just making it simple, which is beautiful.
Nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century. Me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple.
Not big and beautiful.
And we've been hit with more nationwide.
Halfway there, the parental rights victory. Todd Blanche of the second ruling, parents can opt out of transgender ideology schools. Nice. Restore parents' rights to decide the child's education. Even better. And no longer forced exposure to objectionable contact, meaning that no more, let the kids be alone. Leave the kids alone. There's a point in time where if you were a Warzone streamer and you said leave the kids alone, you got your bundle removed from Call of Duty. Now we're doing it at a federal level.
If not for the injunctions,
I think Call of Duty owes Nick Merckx an apology.
Great decision that came down today, the Transbooks case, which restores parents' rights
to
decide
more
their
than
child's
apology,
education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it. But that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off.
Nice. No, this is good. This is honestly a huge update for America, and this is a great update. Finally, America got a good patch update. The strategic legal approach, how Trump's team won. They challenged the injunction power itself, not the underlying policies. Forced on separation of powers, not constitutional merits. And avoid fighting birthright citizenship directly. So smart.
What is the
this is like their plan.
Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes.
Here, I'm curious actually, real quick. List out 3 Pros and cons for birthright citizenship. Promotes equality and inclusion. Simplifies the legal status. I mean, it eliminates complex immigration process for those born in the country, but what about the parents? And encourages integration and incentivizes families to integrate into society as their children are recognized as full citizens with the same rights and responsibilities. All of these, I don't, those aren't very good. Okay, potential for exploitation. Very first one, huh? Can lead to birth tourism, where non-residents travel to give birth to a country to secure citizenship for their child, potentially straining resources. That was the very first point that I made, huh? Your boy is an idiot, but sometimes he's kind of smart. Immigration policy changes may complicate efforts to control illegal immigration. You don't say. And a resource strain. Automatic citizenship can increase demands on public services like schools and welfare programs, especially areas with high immigration rates. Son of a gun. You have an idiot like me who could point that out in 3 seconds, then it's a no-brainer.
I guess it could come down. I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win. But most likely, that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon, not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting on that in the next term.
And what is the
Huge. Now the terror gang numbers, Pam Body's enforcement update. We've had 2,700 arrests of terrorist and gang members today. Not yesterday, today. MS-13, Sonora cartels, they're all targeted. HSI investigations, they're ongoing. Violent criminals, they're the priority. Let's hear it from the woman herself.
And on immigration, on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller.
Maybe that is total.
Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer.
No longer. We're getting to the end of this, boys. 8. The systematic abuse. Trump describes the broken system. If any of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of the duly elected president, he or she could block that policy from going into effect for many years. This is true. It's just like those low-level judges who people have never even heard of don't need that kind of power.
These judges have attempted to
We
dictate
have checks
the
and
law
balance
for the
system,
entire
but not at that level.
nation.
Not at
In
that
practice,
level.
this meant
do they
that
have
if
such
any
high,
one of the nearly 700
power.
federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. These judges have attempted to
Constitutional restoration. Trump's framing is going to bring back the Constitution, restore the separation of powers, the opposite of power concentration. It stops judicial branch from stealing the executive or authority.
What would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
We're going to have a green light forward. Trump explained with urgency, we have to act quickly when it comes to this illegal immigration problem. It's a bad problem. It's not great. We have murderers, killers, drug dealers, and more. In an old system that will take years to overturn. these wrong decisions. The American people voted for these policies, so I'm going to enact these policies.
Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that, but this is really also a decision based on common
Those lawyers
sense.
don't need that
It didn't
power,
work
though.
the other way. It was a
So, yes,
disaster where somebody
this is
from
getting in the way of
a
them,
certain location,
but they don't need
in
that
a
power in
very
the first place.
liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country. And we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Interesting. Now, I know all of these, these points are around the big, beautiful bill. And it's frustrating because these bills are like this thick and have hundreds of things inside of them. And it's so hard to like understand what's really the big pushing force behind these, these bills. And from what we hear from Trump, they're all good things, but there's always going to be things underneath the surface that were like, I don't remember us talking about that one. I don't know if I agree with that, but America got patch notes updates. Were these good updates? Let me know down below. As always, I challenge you guys, make somebody laugh today, and I catch you guys. And oh, wait, hold on. Before we go on that, I did get thank you guys for coming out, reaching out to me on Instagram, giving you guys an update. Here, let this lock in, zoom in, focus in. We got an update. We got another job, baby, and we start Tuesday. So it's going to be a bumpy road on getting these YouTube videos back out, but don't worry, boys. Your boy's back on his feet. The channel ain't going nowhere, and if anything, we're just getting started.